Hey everybody. So I'm getting a little frustrated because this is like my third time trying to record this video. My computer keeps like cutting me off or doing something funky, so I'm starting to get a little irritated. Anyway, talked to my recruiter yesterday, and I just want to make this video to kind of share the information I got from my recruiter. Um, and I had somebody email me last night and ask me some questions, so I want to address those questions and answer them for everybody out there that might be watching my videos trying to get answers. But the first thing I want to do is clarify that I am trying to go into the Navy, excuse me, trying to go into the Navy as an officer. A lot of the YouTube videos on here are about people that's just enlisting into the Navy and the enlistment process. The officer process is a little bit different than the enlistment process, so that's one of the main reasons why I started my vlog, is because I know there are other people out there that want to join as an officer or might not know that they can join as an officer, so I just kind of want to shed some light on the officer side of things and the process for officer. So, talk to my before I go into what I talked to about my recruiter, last night I had somebody message me and they asked me, did having a master's degree help my application? My recruiter said that it is helpful to have a master's degree because it's so competitive right now, because so many people are trying to join the Navy. Well, trying to join the military, period. So having a master's degree is helpful, but the requirement is a bachelor's. So they are more concerned with your bachelor's degree. Did you get it from an accredited college? What was your GPA, XYZ? And then they will note that you have a master's. It'll go on your application. So it is a good look for you. And then they asked me about age limit. Now, on the Navy website, it says that the age limit is 35. My recruiter told me the age limit is 29. So if you are concerned about the age limit for joining as an officer or enlisting or whatever, I suggest you ask your recruiter, because like I said, the website says 35, but my recruiter told me it is 29. So that's that. Now, I talked to my recruiter yesterday, and we discussed a few things. So the first thing, I just want to give an overview of the officer process. You take the Aviation Test Selection Battery Test, ASTB. You take that test, and then you fill out your application, and then your application goes to the board. Once the board sends it back to your recruiter, they either say yay or nay. If they say yes, then your recruiter proceeds to take you to MEPS, and then you go through the MEPS process, get your ship date, sign your contract, pick your job, all that stuff. If they say no, then you need to talk with your recruiter to find out why they said no, and if it's possible for you to try to resubmit your application to the board. So basically, as an officer, your application has to go to a board, and they basically decide whether or not they want you to proceed with the process or not. So the Aviation Selection Test Battery is different than the ASVAB. The Aviation Selection Test Battery is a 6-part test that the officers take to find out if they qualify to enlist as an officer. Now, I think the passing score is a 35, but my recruiter said you need to shoot for a 50 or higher, because that is what the competitive grading is at. If you score below a 50, it's not a good look for you, and it might hurt your application. So basically, just think minimum 50 for that test. Please note, you do not take the ASVAB test at any point during the officer process. So do not study for the ASVAB, study for the ASTB, Aviation Selection Test Battery. After you take that test, you take it in your recruiter's office. My recruiter sent me a link for some study material and practice tests. Once you have studied and taken the practice test and you feel comfortable, you go back to your recruiter's office to take the actual test. And then from there, it gives you your score immediately, and then if you score high enough, then you'll proceed on with your application. So then you fill out the application. You'll need 3 references. You have to give your recruiter the name and email addresses for your references, because it has to be on a particular form, and they'll send the form for on your behalf to whoever you want to give the reference. If you are currently employed, he said that they are going to probably most likely want to send one to your current supervisor. And then the other two can be like a coworker. If you're just graduating from college or about to graduate from college, then you can use your professors. You'll need your official transcripts from any college you attended. So I have a undergrad and a graduate degree, so I have to get my official transcripts from both. I did ask if I have a master's, can I just turn in my transcript for my master's, and he was like, no, you have to turn in your transcript for both, for any college that you attended, basically. And then you have to complete the medical documents, and my recruiter has already sent me those forms. He sent me the medical forms and the test information, and then once I go back to take the test, then I do my application. So on the medical form, if you have any medical issues, asthma, irregular heartbeat, anything that'll be of a concern for the Navy, then you have to obviously mark it on the form, but then you have to provide the documentation to your recruiter, because they will then have to send it to MEPS, and MEPS will send it back to them with a yes, they can come and get the physical and go through the MEPS process, or you might get disqualified at that point, because depending on your condition, they might say, no, we can't have that liability, they can't join the Navy. So when you get your medical documents, do not lie on them. Just fill them out. If you need to provide documentation, provide whatever documentation from your doctor to your recruiter, and they'll send that to MEPS and wait for an answer back. So basically, that's the process. The longest part, my recruiter said the longest part of the process is sending your application to the board and waiting for an answer back, because the board might only meet once a month, or every 3 months, or every 6 months, just depending on the time of the year, how many applications they have to review, or whatever. So he was like, and once you send it off, it could take up to a month for you to hear back from them. So like I talked to my recruiter yesterday, and he was like, the earliest I would probably even be able to think about leaving for OCS, which is Officer Candidate Training, is August. And that's the early date, because he was like, it could take up to a year to complete the entire process to be able to leave for training. So that's basically the officer process. It's not that hard. It's more so just paperwork and hoping that you stand out to the board that is reviewing your application, because they are the ones that'll give you the yes or no on being able to join. And then once you pass that part, then going to MEPS and being able to pass the physical and get through the MEPS process. So my suggestion is, once you turn in your application, go ahead and start working out and trying to get in shape. If you are out of shape, run a mile or whatever, do some sit-ups, do some push-ups, exercise, because you need to start getting in shape. Because not only for the physical for MEPS, but just for boot camp as well. So after you send in your application, gotten approved, went through MEPS, passed your physical, signed your contract, picture. Oh, I talked about jobs with my recruiter too. And you should go on, I would recommend going on the Navy website basically, and you can Google and you can YouTube the different officer positions. The one that I'm most interested in is Supply Corps Officer, but my recruiter recommended that I look into Surface Warfare Officer, Intelligence Officer, and Aviation Officer. There's also something Flight Officer and a couple Nuclear Officer and something else. Anyway, you can go on the Navy website and study the different officer positions, because I think you can apply for up to 3 different positions on your application. That way, if you only apply to one, then if they're not looking for that position, then they're going to say no. So you can apply for up to 3. I'm pretty much going to shoot for a Supply Corps Officer, because it deals more with the financial field, which is what I got my degrees in. So I kind of want to stick with that, and I feel like that fits me, my personality, and what I want to do. So just kind of do not pick a job just because it's in high demand, or you think it's going to be fun, or because your recruiter told you that that's what you should do. Pick the job that you want, because you pretty much gonna be stuck with that. So just make sure you go on the website and read about that. And then I Googled the day in the life of a supply corps officer, and it was some videos on here about that, so I watched those. It was pretty cool. So you can probably YouTube some videos about it. But yeah, so make sure you kind of research the jobs before you talk to your recruiter or after you talk to your recruiter, just so you know what you're trying to apply for. So after you get your ship date, you ship to Officer Candidate Training School, OCS, and it is in Rhode Island. It's a 12-week process. Basically, it's like a longer boot camp. But you also, you have like a 4-week session that's more hardcore boot camp, and then you have academics, and then you have the leadership phase. So the boot camp process for officers, the boot camp process for officers is different than for enlisted as well. So it's just the process for enlisted and officer are just different. So you kind of just need to, if you're really interested in going as an officer, make sure that all of the information that you are finding out is about officer, because enlisted is different. They do totally different than what officers do. The officer website for the Navy is ocs.navy.mil. ocs.navy.mil. And it'll basically give you all of the information about OCS training and like what the academics phase is about. I think it has a video on there that they just updated like a month ago about just kind of like the overview of OCS training as a whole. It's very informative. You should watch it if you are interested. Then after OCS training, you go to basically school again for the field that you chose to be in. So since I'm going as a supply corps, after I go to OCS, then I have to go to school and learn about that field. And I think it's like a 22 or 27-week program or something, but the length of the program is dependent upon what you choose to do, because like the surface warfare officer, they go for like 3 weeks or a month or something like that, and then they're shipped to their base. Excuse me, because the surface warfare officer is more hands-on training than a supply corps officer. So where you go after OCS training is depending upon what your job is. And keep in mind, you choose your job before you ever sign a contract, before you ever leave for training, any of that. When you go to MEPS, you basically know, well, when you fill out your application, you already know what jobs you are applying for. And I'm not sure, like if you only apply for one job, when the board sends the yes back to you, that's the job you're going into. If you apply for 3 jobs, I don't know how that works. I'm pretty sure by the time you get to MEPS, you will have to have picked one, and you assign your contract at MEPS for that. So that's basically it. That's the officer process. I'm studying for the Aviation Selection Test Battery Test now, and I plan to take it within the next week or 2. My recruiter suggested that I do not rush to take it, to really study so that I can score as high as possible, because of course the higher you score, the better your application looks. So and like I'm only trying to do supply corps officer, so I only have to take the 3 parts of the ASTB test. I only have to take reading comprehension, math knowledge, and mechanical comprehension, mechanical something. It's just 3 parts, and it's really not that hard. The math is kind of like what you learned in high school, like geometry and algebra. I've been out of high school since 2005, and I took geometry my freshman year, which was like 2001. So I don't really remember that. So I'm studying that now just to make sure I fully understand, because when I go in there, I already know I'm going to be nervous and a little bit stressed, because I'm going to really want to do good on the test. So I'm trying to study and make sure that I have it to the T before I even decide to go take the test. So I'll probably take the test within 2 weeks. And once I do that, I'll let y'all know how I do, how I scored, and where I go from there. So thank you for watching. If you have any questions, post them below. Deuce, deuce.